Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaDungeon.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Will Schmid. Stop sending me foreign last names, please. What is your favorite realm, boss, and item in Spirit Tracks? Well, I assume maybe that you meant them all all together, like the three things together. If so, I'd probably say the Sand Realm, because I like the design of that, the desert theme. I liked Skeldritch in appearance, because he was like a cool skeleton guy, and he was an interesting boss fight as well, and kind of challenging. And I think the Sand Wand was like the coolest, most creative item in the game, even if I wish there were some more places you could have used it. If I was to like pick them separately, it'd be pretty much the same thing, except my favorite boss was Fraz, the guy you fight at the end of the Snow Temple, and possibly the Snow Realm tying with the Sand Realm, and the Boomerang tying or coming closely behind the Sand Wand. Be sure to tell me your guys' favorites in the comments as well. Smiley Face, no, like literally his name is just Smiley Face. What is your opinion on a Majora's Mask 3DS? They confirmed Majora's Mask 3DS? Seriously? I gotta go tell the other staff. Miss Zelda 3290 asks, in your last video someone asked you about Mario references in the Zelda series. I've played a couple of the Zelda games and I've never seen any. Do you have any examples of any references? Well, obviously I can't think of like all of them right off the bat, but in Link's Awakening there was a ton. There was a lot of enemies from the Mario series, probably because of the side-scrolling segments in that game. The Minish Cap has the same thing. And in the one of the most infamous examples is in Ocarina of Time. When you go into like the garden where you meet Zelda, if you look to the inside the window to the right, I believe, from entering the place, there's paintings on the wall that are actually artwork from Super Mario 64. And also Sharp and Flat from Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask pretty much look like Mario and Luigi. So yeah, those are some examples. Butterbiscuit asks, in Ocarina of Time, why is it that the Stalchildren only come out when you are a child and yet they do not when you are an adult? People have come up with all kinds of great theories, and some of them are admittedly awesome, like the idea that it's Ganon's forces of evil plaguing Hyrule, and, you know, he's using this to convince the King of Hyrule that, you know, he needs someone's help, he needs an ally with evil plaguing Hyrule, things like that, and that once he's the king, he doesn't need that. But really, I don't think that there was any intended coolness to this. I think it was simply that they wanted to do that, but they wanted to make it so that when you were adult Link, Hyrule Field was different, like Hyrule was different. I think that's the only point, really. There wasn't much more to it. Awesome asks, what are your feelings on a future Zelda title that incorporated more RPG elements like Zelda 2? Would it be a flop like some believe Zelda 2 to be, or would it add more gameplay elements to the series? Well, of course it'll add more gameplay elements to the series, that's kind of what it is. I mean, Zelda 2 was successful, I believe, even if some people complain about it, so I wouldn't say it was a flop. I think that it's a good idea to add some depth, and I think that there are ways that you could do it well. I'm pretty sure, I've been told that as long as it's done well is like the most common phrase I repeat. But, point is that there's good ways they can do it that wouldn't, like, overcomplicate things, but would just add a nice little extra layer of depth, and there's no reason not to do so. Some fans would likely complain, but probably not enough to make it unviable. Comeback King asks, so it seems that the origins of the Master Sword are going to be told in Skyward Sword. Does that mean Zelda has run out of origin stories in the series? Oh, absolutely not. There's tons of stories about characters and places and like objects in the series that could still be explored. I mean, you could even take it really cosmic, you know, and tell the origin of the freaking goddesses. I mean, that's when you get like way out of the realm of like normal at all. You know, it's not normal at all when you're telling how a god was created. But I'm still saying, you know, there's lots of things left unexplained. Not all of them need to be explained, but you know, they're there. And of course, they're going to continue adding new ideas, new characters, new places, objects, legends, events to the series. And they're not going to explain them all in every game that they appear in, so that there's always going to be a lot of origin stories they can still tell. If you're talking about going backward, probably, but you know, they can still add on to the back of the history. You don't always have to add to the front, you can add to the back. Don't ask me why this side is the back. I don't know. Desert Dweller SW asks, the technology in the Zelda series seems to be getting more advanced with steam power and gunpowder. Now I've seen tanks, trains, cannons, the bazooka in Twilight Princess, and the seed gun Oracle of Ages. Do you think it is a matter of time before Link gets his hands on, say, a musket? Yeah, probably. I mean, they keep expanding the technology because it expands, you know, different themes and concepts and ideas in the series. And I think that's a good idea, experimenting with all kinds of different visuals and styles. Um, and, you know, the technology, there's not really, like, a limit on how much advanced it can get. I mean, Nintendo said that they weren't, like, worried about the technology in the series as long as it, like, fits the spirit of the game in particular. Like, Spirit Tracks, didn't feel bad about it because it worked with that game, and it did. So I actually totally agree with that mentality. As long as the technology fits with kind of what defines Zelda and defines the game in particular they put it in, and I kind of agree with like that last article that Hanyu posted on the main page of Zelda Dungeon about it. The Zelda series kind of is defined by whimsy and adventure. As long as it fits that theme, I don't think there's anything wrong with adding technology to the series. Not at all. Just, you know, as long as it doesn't break those concepts and, you know, the fantasy concept of the Zelda series, I don't see why technology would be a real issue. King of Red Lions asks, in Ocarina of Time, Link becomes the hero of time, and in the Wind Waker, he becomes the hero of wind. Do you think in Skyward Sword, he becomes the hero of sky? Or he could become the hero of sword, you know, you never know. Of course, I'm pretty sure that they're going to give him some kind of title. I've thought that perhaps he could be the hero of man, or hero of men, no real difference there, that's mentioned in the backstory of the Minish Cap, because it sort of fits a lot of the description of Skyward Sword, but they could give him any kind of title, and they may never actually, like, mention the title in the game, but it could be something like fans will dub in later. Who knows? You know, you're gonna do something like that, though. Eduardo Marinez asks, in Ocarina of Time, when you race the Running Man, you can never beat him. Do you think they changed this in the 3DS version, and what do you think he would give you for beating him? Well, he'd give you, like, the ability to freaking god mod the game and, like, run everywhere and around circles around every boss with no effort. I mean, obviously. Actually, that's actually one of the things about Ocarina of Time that I really hope they do not change or add on to for the 3DS version, primarily because I think that was a great moment. There was just this funny gag of you trying to beat this challenge and you can't. It's things like that that I don't think they should change. They shouldn't, like, change the definition of certain moments in the game. They should add on new stuff, and add on elaboration of stuff and expansion of stuff, not changing what actually existed in the game already. Coco Risa asks, in Ocarina of Time, the Song of Time usually moves objects, but in Majora's Mask it sends you back in time. How come? Well, the object moving thing was kind of just a weird little thing of how you move those Song of Time blocks, probably just to make it so the song was actually useful outside of the plot. It did open the Temple of Time, though, which is where Link slept, you know, to grow up and become the hero. It was kind of a time travel thing. But specifically in Majora's Mask, you could travel through time because you had, like, the blessing of whatever, of the goddess of time. Whoever that is, I have no idea. Some people theorize it's Nehru, you know, you could just go on about it. But basically, I guess it's because the Song of Time was, like, kind of, like, represented her, or whatever. She decided to help you when you play it, or something. I don't know. They probably just wanted to expand on that name and make it actually have involvement with time. Cipriano asks, what do you think is the most realistic chronological order of titles in The Legend of Zelda's confirmed split timeline? Well, admittedly, I don't get too much into the timeline stuff, so a couple of things on my list may seem somewhat generic, or, you know, maybe somewhat, lazy. But, you know, of course, after Ocarina of Time, you have the obvious ones on either timeline. On the adult timeline, you've got the Wind Waker, then you've got Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. I mean, that's obvious. On the child timeline, you've got the obvious Majora's Mask, and then, of course, later down the line, you have Twilight Princess. Now, a lot of the classic titles, like the first two Legend of Zeldas, despite the fact that they have a lot of, like, explanation of the origin stories of Hyrule, I'm skeptical on where they're supposed to be placed now. In fact, I'd almost say it makes sense if they put them way at the end. And since both Spirit Tracks ends with, like, a new Hyrule, and Twilight Princess has a non-flooded Hyrule, technically they could go on either end of the timeline. And at the end of either split. And I could say the same about a lot of, like, the side and handheld titles. I mean, I kind of believe it that Link's Awakening is probably supposed to take place after A Link to the Past, since that's probably what they originally intended, but realistically it could kind of go anywhere, you know? And, I'd probably say the one weirdest thing that's probably the most interesting note, and that I strongly support, is that I believe that A Link to the Past probably almost certainly comes on the adult timeline between Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker because of lines about in Wind Waker about Ganondorf ruling the Dark Realm. There was no Dark Realm unless you just talking about his kingdom, except in A Link to the Past. Now, supposedly he appeared, you know, he came to power he didn't come to power again before the Wind Waker, but a lot of A Link to the Past events were kind of like, they weren't like written down in history. They weren't things that everyone was talking about. It seems like it kind of actually almost happened in secret. Aghanim was the poster child of evil for that story, at least as far as the citizens of Hyrule would be concerned. So that's probably that's my kind of basic but kind of interesting timeline. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact page in the description wherever it is, depending on which page you're looking at, and I'll see you guys later. Our first question comes from Will Schmids. Stop sending me foreign